Just because my stepsister Willow tried to seduce me like her mother as a mistress but failed, she now holds a grudge against me. She tried every possible way to get my dad to kick me out of the house. However, neither she nor her mother anticipated that my dad, though a scumbag, had a clear mind. As a result, not only did they fail every time, but my dad also ended up beating them so badly they lost control of their bladders. Then came the day of the college entrance exam. My desk mate suddenly went mad and ripped up my answer sheet. The other students were shocked, but I remained calm and unshaken. I had known this was Willow's scheme all along. She thought she could get me to fail the exam by doing this, but in reality, I had already been admitted through direct recommendation. I was just there for fun. Chapter 1. On the first day of the college entrance exam, with less than 10 minutes left in the morning session, the boy sitting in front of me suddenly went mad. Before the invigilator could react, he ripped up my answer sheet and test paper. I deliberately acted as though I was shocked, letting him do as he pleased. Because, before entering the exam hall, I already knew he would tear up my answer sheet and test paper. The invigilator called the police, and they took the boy away. When I left the school, my dad, my stepmother, and my stepsister, Willow, were all waiting outside. When they saw me appear, my stepmother rushed up to greet me, saying, "George, I heard someone's answer sheet got torn up in the exam room. Are you okay?" She looked concerned, but her eyes betrayed her schadenfreude. Upon hearing her words, both my dad and Willow turned their gaze to me. I calmly replied, "The person whose answer sheet got torn up was me." My stepmother froze for a moment. Then her expression shifted to one of deep concern. She said, "Oh no, what do we do? You can't retake the exam." Willow chimed in, "Yeah, this is just the first exam. What if it affects George's performance in the following exams?" But my dad sighed and said, "George, since this has happened, how about we repeat the year? As for the person who tore your answer sheet, we'll definitely hold them legally responsible." I watched their poor performance, and the corners of my lips slowly curled into a smile. "Oh, I forgot to tell you," I said. "I've already been granted direct admission to university. I'm just here for fun." The fact that I had been directly admitted was confirmed when my mom passed away. Right after her funeral, my dad eagerly brought my stepmother and Willow back home. So I didn't mention this to him. Willow and I didn't attend the same school, so naturally, she didn't know I had been directly admitted. Honestly, I hadn't planned to come to the exam at all, but since my stepmother and Willow were so malicious, I couldn't just let them off the hook. As I watched their faces, like they'd swallowed a fly, a sense of satisfaction filled my heart, and my smile grew brighter. My dad was stunned for a moment, then quickly reacted. "You're a direct admit? Why didn't you tell me?" I smiled faintly and replied, "The direct admission was decided after my mom passed away." My dad's face instantly became awkward. "George, come on, tell me what you want. I'll give it to you." I glanced at my stepmother and Willow, then said, "I want the house we're living in now." "Dad, can you transfer it to my name?" When we bought that house, my mom had contributed financially as well. Now, the value of that property had increased 5 or 6 times, worth millions. My stepmother often whispered to my dad, wanting him to transfer the house to Willow's name, saying she wanted security for the future, that she didn't feel safe otherwise. "Dream on." My dad didn't even hesitate. "Okay, after the exam, I'll take you to handle the transfer procedures." Upon hearing this, both my stepmother and Willow's faces turned dark. Chapter 2. After the college entrance exams, I urged my dad to take me to handle the property transfer procedures, but just as we were about to leave, my stepmother suddenly scalded her hand with boiling water. Willow, her voice tinged with a fake cry, said, "Dad, can you take Mom to the hospital first?" My dad immediately furrowed his brows. While enduring the pain, my stepmother said, "It's fine. It's just a minor injury. I can rinse it with cold water. We shouldn't delay the property transfer for George." I couldn't help but smirk inwardly. My stepmother was so desperate to stop my dad from transferring the house to my name that she was willing to go this far. She had just burned her hand with freshly boiled water, and still, she acted like it was no big deal. I said, "Dad, we can handle the property transfer anytime, but Aunt Lou's hand, if we don't take her to the hospital soon, it might leave a scar." I deliberately pretended to be the considerate one, acting, "Who can't do that?" My dad immediately made up his mind. "We'll take Aunt Lou to the hospital first, then we'll go for the property transfer." My stepmother was left stunned. She never expected that, despite scalding her own hand, she still couldn't stop my dad from taking me to handle the property transfer. On the way, my stepmother's expression remained sour, but my dad was focused on driving and didn't pay her any attention. Willow snorted and said, "I really envy you, George. You don't even have to go to university, and you already have a property worth millions under your name." I turned to Willow, sitting in the back seat, and smiled. "Envy me? Well, if you wanted to, maybe you should encourage your mom to work a little harder and buy you a house as well." My dad, without sparing my stepmother's face, chimed in. Aunt Lou's salary is barely enough for her own expenses. Where's she going to get the money for a house? My stepmother forced an awkward laugh. Yeah, the housing prices are just too high. Her eyes were practically shooting fire. Despite how unwilling my stepmother and Willow were, the house was still transferred to my name. My dad might be a scumbag, but at least he wasn't bad to me. That morning, as I was having breakfast with my stepmother and the others, we heard a knock at the door. It was the police. The officer asked, "Is Willow here?" I pointed to the younger one at the table and said, "That's her." When my stepmother saw the police, she immediately panicked. "Officer, what does my daughter have to do with this?" One of the officers spoke up. "Willow, do you know a person named Makoto?" Makoto was the name of the boy who sat in front of me during the exam. Hearing the name, Makoto, Willow's expression visibly shifted. She instinctively shook her head and said, "I don't know him." The officer sneered. "You don't know him? Then how come you transferred 50,000 yuan to him?" I raised an eyebrow, surprised by how stupid Willow was. With the internet these days, any transaction leaves a trace. She paid Makoto to tear up my answer sheet, and even had the audacity to make a direct transfer. If it weren't for the situation, I might have given her a thumbs up. Willow was taken away by the police, and my stepmother, panicked, followed them to the station. In truth, it wasn't difficult to investigate the torn answer sheet, but I purposely begged the police to wait until after the exams were over to handle it. I had someone look into it, and Willow's grades weren't bad. She would definitely get into a regular university, and if she performed well, she might even get into a prestigious one. But once she had this kind of criminal record, whether any school would accept her was another issue. If she managed to get into a good university but then couldn't find a school willing to take her, their expressions would be priceless. Unfortunately, my dad had gone on a business trip and couldn't be there to watch Willow get taken away. Chapter 3. Because of the severity of the situation and the public outrage it stirred online, the police handled the case quickly. Makoto was detained for 10 days, disqualified from the college entrance exams for 3 years, and had this recorded in his personal file. But honestly, losing the chance to take the exam didn't matter much to Makoto. Willow had paid him 50,000 yuan to carry out her plan because his grades were already terrible. According to his previous mock exam scores, he probably wouldn't even get into a community college. Since he wasn't going to college anyway, he figured tearing up an answer sheet and getting detained for a few days for 50,000 yuan wasn't a bad deal. Willow, as the mastermind behind this, was also detained. But she was lucky. My dad was on a business trip, and by the time he came back, Willow would probably be released. Once my stepmother found out Willow was being detained, she stopped pretending at home. She pointed a finger at me, fuming, and yelled, "George, how can you be so heartless at your age? You've been directly admitted, and yet you still deliberately went to the exam to trap your sister. What's in it for you?" I smiled and said, "I just love exams. Can you stop me? If you and your daughter hadn't been plotting against me, would this have happened?" I couldn't help but admire my own ability to turn things around on her. I was just going with the flow. Compared to what she and Willow had been doing, this was nothing. If I hadn't been directly admitted, and someone tore up my answer sheet in the first exam, I'd have to repeat the year. If my mental state was bad, I might even collapse and waste the rest of my life. But if Willow ended up without any university willing to accept her because of this, that's her own fault. My stepmother, nearly spitting in rage, said, "So you were faking it all along?" I casually replied, "Yes." I admitted it without hesitation. "You two act in front of my dad, so why can't I?" From the moment my stepmother and Willow moved in, I'd considered kicking them out, but I held back. My mom's funeral had just finished, and my dad immediately brought them back, which showed how much he valued them. My maternal grandparents lived far away, and they wouldn't be able to help in this situation. If I went against him, it would only make things worse for me. It would push him closer to my stepmother and Willow, and the house was still in my dad's name, so I reluctantly accepted that they'd be living here. My stepmother was so furious she couldn't react for a while. She grabbed a feather duster nearby and tried to hit me with it. I caught the feather duster barehanded and smiled. "Aunt Lou, once you entered the Wang family's door, you should follow our rules. You're just a free maid my dad married, so why are you trying to act tough with me?" I had learned that line while watching family dramas with my grandpa. Back then, I thought, damn, that line's so infuriating, but never imagined I'd one day use it. My stepmother had been involved in an affair with my dad while my mom was still alive. My mom had poor health, and when she found out about their affair, her condition worsened, and she passed away shortly after. I had endured everything up until now, but it wasn't because I was afraid of her. I wanted her to regret marrying my dad. My stepmother was so enraged she almost fainted. Trembling, she asked, "What did you say?" I looked at her coldly and sneered, "Aunt Lou, you're not that old, yet you've started losing your hearing." Through gritted teeth, my stepmother spat, "George, when your dad gets back, I'll make you regret this." I laughed dismissively and said, Aunt Lou, you still don't know. All the houses, cars, and savings in this family are under my name. If you and Willow want to survive in this house, you'll have to serve me first. Got it. Chapter 4. My dad's affair wasn't just known to me. My grandparents were also aware of it. They were concerned that my stepmother might be after my dad's money. So before they got married, they made sure to transfer all the family assets, except for that one house, into my name. A daughter-in-law may not necessarily belong to the Wong family, but a grandson does. The day Willow was released, my dad happened to return from his business trip. Before he came back, my stepmother and Willow had already been in their room, sobbing. The few days of detention seemed to have left a significant mark on Willow, as her face had grown thinner. When my dad saw Willow's pointed chin, he mistakenly thought she had been losing weight. He frowned disapprovingly and said, "Is Willow on a diet? She's lost so much weight. Girls should have a little more flesh. Being too thin isn't healthy." Willow, unable to express her true feelings, awkwardly responded, "Yeah, I won't diet anymore." My stepmother, fearing the conversation would veer into discussing Willow's detention, quickly changed the subject. "You must be exhausted after such a long business trip. Why don't you rest first? I'll call you when dinner's ready," I interjected. "Dad, Willow isn't dieting." I purposely flashed a malicious look to stop my stepmother from steering the conversation away. Dad looked at me in surprise and then turned to Willow, asking, "Not dieting?" His expression shifted, now looking concerned. "Is she sick?" My stepmother panicked and quickly intervened. "George, your dad just came back from his trip. Why bring this up now?" Both she and Willow grew visibly anxious, desperately trying to stop me from speaking. I sighed and said, "I just don't want Dad to misunderstand Willow." "Aunt Lou, why are you in such a hurry to stop me?" Dad glanced at my stepmother and said, "I went on a business trip, but that doesn't mean I was working 24/7. George, what's going on?" Willow, now nearly on the verge of tears, couldn't hold back any longer. I feigned disappointment and slowly said, "The incident with my answer sheet being torn is related to Willow, which is why she was detained for a few days. She just got released today." The atmosphere in the living room became deathly silent. Neither my stepmother nor Willow dared to breathe. Dad's face turned an alarming shade of pale, and his expression hardened as he raised his hand and slapped Willow's face with a loud crack. He said, "At such a young age, how could you be so malicious? If George hadn't been directly admitted, would he have had to repeat a year because of you?" Willow covered her face and burst into tears. Seeing this, my stepmother, acting heartbroken, said, "It's my fault. I've been too busy with work and didn't take care of her." Dad shot back, "Am I not busy with work? How come George didn't do anything like this?" He didn't hold back from confronting my stepmother right in front of me and Willow. My stepmother was left speechless and extremely embarrassed, but since Dad was clearly angry, she dared not retaliate. Instead, she meekly apologized. I smiled and said, "Dad, actually, Aunt Lou is right. She's been busy with work right now. Willow really needs to be disciplined." I paused dramatically before continuing. "How about this, Aunt Lou? Why not quit your job? You don't make much money anyway. It'd be better to stay home and take care of Willow. If we let things go as they are, Willow's next step might be to pay someone to harm people. When it gets to that point, it'll be too late to regret. If looks could kill, I think I would have died several times over by now." But my stepmother and Willow could only glare at me with daggers in their eyes whenever Dad wasn't looking. They didn't dare to say a word in protest. My dad was not only shameless but also very domineering, and I knew my stepmother had felt this firsthand. Given what Willow had done, I was certain that for a long time, both mother and daughter would focus on trying to please my dad. After a brief moment of thought, my dad said, "George makes a good point. Aunt Lou, you should quit your job and stay home full-time. Focus on taking care of the kids, since we don't need your salary anyway." He added, "At least George is sensible." I smiled at my dad and said, "Since the family savings are all in my name, I'll just give Aunt Lou and Willow their pocket money from now on." My stepmother hesitated and finally spoke up. "That doesn't seem appropriate." Dad shot her a cold look and retorted, "What's inappropriate about it?" Because of Willow's actions, my stepmother eventually decided to quit her job. She had been a small supervisor at my dad's company, but I had discreetly let people in the company know about her affair. Even without Willow's issue, she probably wouldn't have lasted much longer before quitting to be a stay-at-home mom. The moment my dad left for work, my stepmother started giving me attitude. I was sitting on the couch, scrolling through my phone, and casually ordered, "Aunt Lou, can you wash some fruit for me?" She retorted, "George, I'm your elder, not your family servant. You can wash your own fruit, can't you?" I turned to look at her and said, "Aunt Lou, don't forget, you quit your job to come home and take care of me and your daughter. If I tell Dad you've been giving me attitude every day when he's away, do you think he'll be happy?" I knew she understood my dad's temper very well. Originally, we had hired a maid, but after my mom passed away, Aunt Lou and Willow moved in. The maid might have felt like Aunt Lou was the reason she was fired, as she assumed my dad agreed to it. Reluctantly, my stepmother bowed her head. I knew she had bad intentions. Hoping for an opportunity to strike, I was willing to give her that chance. When she brought the washed fruit to the table, I deliberately spoke with an overly serious tone. Aunt Lou, you've been living with us for some time now, right? She slammed the fruit plate down on the table, clearly frustrated. What are you trying to say? I glanced at her belly and, in an annoyed tone, said, but why is there no sign of anything happening in your belly? Can't you have children? She looked utterly shocked, not expecting such a sudden question. After a pause, she responded, are you hoping I'll have another child? I sighed and said, Dad always wanted a second child, but he never had the chance. Now that you're not working, the family can afford it. Why not give him another? Her eyes lit up with joy, though she said, if you really want me to give you a brother, I'll consider it. I knew she had taken my words to heart, but I didn't expect her to be so eager. After cleaning up the breakfast dishes, my stepmother quickly got ready to leave. Before she left, she asked me for several thousand yuan. She said, George, I'm going to the hospital for a checkup. If everything's fine, I'll try to give you a brother next year. I transferred her 10,000 yuan and said, go ahead, get a full checkup, buy some supplements if you need them. Our family isn't short on money, and having children is a big deal. Don't be stingy. My stepmother's face lit up with a smile, and I mirrored her expression, though Willow didn't seem to find any joy in the situation. Chapter 5. I don't know what the doctor said to her, but within a few days, she came to me and said, George, the test results are all in. My health is fine, and I can still have children. My stepmother is already 41 years old. Although she takes good care of herself and looks like someone in their early 30s, she is, after all, considered an older expectant mother. So, I pretended to hesitate and said, Aunt Lou, this is my oversight. I almost forgot you're already 41. Having a child at your age is risky. Maybe we should forget about it. No, we can't forget about it. My stepmother quickly responded, I don't have much to do at home. Once you and Willow are in college, I'll be left alone. If I can have a child, I won't feel so lonely. As if worried I might disagree, she added, and George, don't you want a younger brother? Let me have another one for you. The smile on my face slowly widened. I said, since Aunt Lou insists, then let's do it. Hearing this, my stepmother's smile became much more sincere. I said, but let's not tell Dad yet. We can surprise him when there's good news. I sighed and continued, after all, both you and Dad are at this age. It's probably hard to conceive. If we tell him in advance and you don't get pregnant, he'd just be disappointed, and that would backfire. Okay, we'll do it your way. My stepmother agreed immediately. Mom, Willow couldn't help but speak up from the side. You're so old. Why would you even think about having another child? What do you know? My stepmother snapped at Willow. A woman needs a son to secure her status. If I don't have my own son, how can I keep your dad's heart? You don't think your stepfather is going to let you take care of him when he's old, do you? To put it bluntly, what she was really saying was that having a son was a way to fight for the family's wealth. Upon hearing this, Willow's anger immediately dissipated, replaced by undisguised smugness. This was because in the past, she had tried to win over my father by copying her mother's behavior to scheme for the Wang family's fortune. But I despised the pair of mistresses deeply and could never like the daughter of a mistress. After I rejected her, she had held a grudge against me. Now, she probably thought that if her mother had another son, she and her mom would be in control of the family. As if afraid I might misunderstand, my stepmother quickly explained, George, Lou Aunt wants another child, but it's not for the Wang family's fortune. Don't overthink it. I smiled and said, Aunt Lou, please don't say that. If you have a son for my dad, what's his will is his will. After all, as my stepmother eagerly started trying to conceive, the day to check the test results finally arrived. Willow was probably confident in her results, as she wasn't nervous at all when checking. I had asked someone to look into it beforehand, and Willow had always ranked in the top 10 of her class. Dad, Mom, my results are out, Willow said with a bright smile. I scored 632 points. I raised my eyebrows. That's a good score. The cutoff for liberal arts at our provincial university this year was only 528 points. My stepmother was overjoyed. Willow, you really made your dad and me proud. I smiled and said, congratulations, little sister, you did well. Only my dad didn't seem particularly happy. Still, he gave Willow a symbolic bonus of 10,000 yuan and said, see if you like anything, go buy it. Willow was a bit displeased when she saw my dad only gave her 10,000 yuan. She hooked her arm around his and pouted. Dad, you gave brother a house for being recommended, but I got 632 points and only 10,000 yuan. I want my own house too. When I go to college, I don't want to live in the dorms. My stepmother seemed to want to test my dad's attitude and didn't stop her outburst. My dad's face immediately darkened. He said, Do you know how much a house costs here? Even a small apartment in a remote area costs 2 to 3 million yuan. You're asking for a 2 to 3 million yuan house just because you got into college. When you graduate, fall in love, and want to get married, what will you ask me for then? Willow's face turned bright red, and tears welled up in her eyes. My dad continued, the house we live in is half from George's mother. Transferring it to him is only fair. How can you compare with George? Willow, my money didn't come easily. Ask your mom if your request is reasonable. I knew my dad never liked to mince words, but I didn't expect him to be so direct on such an occasion. After realizing my dad's stance, my stepmother quickly spoke up. Willow, you're being so unreasonable. If it weren't for your dad, we'd still be cramped in the old building. Compared to before, our life is so much better now. Don't be so ungrateful. Willow, enraged by her mother's words, ran to her room crying. My stepmother awkwardly said, this child, I'll teach her a lesson later. My dad waved his hand and said, enough. Don't act with me. If you really didn't want her to say that, you should have stopped her when she first opened her mouth. How could you wait until she finished? I felt relieved. My dad wasn't blind. He was just plain mean. Chapter 6. Because of this, my stepmother was scolded by my dad. My dad said, didn't you follow me for the money? As long as you do what you're supposed to do, I won't treat you unfairly, but don't expect what's not yours. My stepmother looked embarrassed. She unwillingly explained, no, honey, it's because I like you, that's why. My dad clicked his tongue. Enough. We're both over 40. We're not kids anymore. What is it you like about me? My age or my temper? Upon hearing this, I looked at my dad in surprise. I didn't expect him to have such self-awareness. My stepmother's face reddened, and she bit her lip, ultimately not explaining further. Watching my dad ridicule my stepmother like this, I almost wanted to clap my hands in joy. I found out about their affair when my mom was in the hospital, perhaps because they thought no one they knew would be around the hospital. My dad and stepmother were kissing in the lobby of the inpatient department. That day, I finished school early, and I didn't expect to walk right into them. At the time, I was worried it would upset my mom, so I chose to keep quiet, but I still underestimated my stepmother. When my mom's condition improved a little, she actually brought Willow to visit her. I heard about it from a nurse. Not long after they left, my mom called in a lawyer and made a will, leaving all of her assets to me. A couple of days later, my mom passed away. In her belongings, I found a photo of my stepmother and dad kissing. After my dad had scolded my stepmother and Willow, I took the initiative to suggest hiring a nanny. I said, Aunt Lou, you're now trying to get pregnant. Let the nanny take care of things like cooking and cleaning. Really? Maybe because she was used to being bossed around. My stepmother seemed somewhat surprised by my suggestion. I nodded and smiled lightly, saying, why would I lie to you? Your current task is to give us the Wang family a healthy baby boy. I intentionally glanced at her stomach and said, you're not young anymore. Having a child is probably harder than it would be for a younger girl. Plus, you need to give the Wang family a son. You know what I mean? I nearly laughed at myself after saying that. I felt like I was twisting fate upside down, but I was doing it intentionally. If I fought with her, my dad might still think I was being unreasonable, but now, no one could find fault with me, and my stepmother had to swallow her disgust and thank me. I handed her a card and said, this is my spare card. During your pregnancy preparations, you can use it for your expenses. My stepmother clearly hesitated, but she still deliberately refused. George, you've already been sending me pocket money every month. I can't keep using your card. That doesn't feel right. What's wrong with it? I forced the card into her hand. Look at you now. Your crow's feet and nasolabial folds are getting more and more obvious. I deliberately looked her up and down. And your figure, too. Don't you see that your body's starting to change? Aunt Lou, I'm not saying this to hurt you, but although my dad's older now, he's still rich. If you don't take good care of yourself, who knows how many young girls outside are lining up to take your place? My stepmother looked insecure after I said this. She subconsciously touched her face and asked, do I really look that much older recently? I suggested, there's a mirror in the house. Why don't you take a look? Without thinking, she went straight to the bathroom, but what she didn't know was that I had switched the mirror in there. I had specifically chosen one that mimics the effect of an iPhone's front camera, ensuring that beautiful people look ordinary and ordinary people look worse. After that day, my stepmother started going to the gym and beauty salons every day. She herself had been the mistress who managed to move up the ranks, and deep down, she was probably afraid of being replaced in the same way. This, of course, made Willow a little unhappy. One day, as my stepmother was about to head to the gym, Willow said, Mom, how can you still be in the mood to go out? Almost everyone in the first-tier schools has been admitted, and I haven't heard anything. Aren't you worried? My stepmother, busy going out, snapped, I'm not part of the admissions office. Why should I be worried? Just wait a little longer. Maybe we'll get news in the next few days. With that, She left without a second thought. Compared to a daughter who had already made my dad dislike her, it was obvious that keeping my dad's heart was more important to her. At first, Willow wasn't worried at all, but when people with lower scores than hers started getting accepted, and she still hadn't heard anything, she started to panic. I couldn't help but gloat. I almost forgot. The incident where you had someone tear up my answer sheet seems to have been documented. The police sent out a report with a blue background and white text. I wonder if that'll affect your admission. Willow, who's around my age but hasn't seen much of the world, suddenly became flustered upon hearing this. She gritted her teeth and said, "What's so great about you? Don't think you can scare me. I scored so high. There's no way no school will accept me." I smiled slightly and said, "We'll just have to wait and see." As for Willow's fate, I didn't feel sorry for her at all. You reap what you sow. She's where she is today because of her own actions, and she can't blame me. We tried sitting in the exam room the day before, but the idea of tearing up the answer sheet was hers from the start. She had paid someone to find out who sat in front of me, and then my stepmother spent a whole afternoon finding out where the Makoto family lived and their background. Willow might really hate me, even going to Makoto's house the night before the exam to make a deal with him. But what they didn't know was that I had already hired a private investigator to keep an eye on them. I not only had photos of what they did, but even videos with audio. If either my stepmother or Willow had woken up before the exam, none of this would have happened. But sadly, they made their choice, and I simply took advantage of the situation. Chapter 7. Recently, both my stepmother and Willow have been having a tough time. My stepmother has been feeling a bit listless because her pregnancy hasn't progressed. She's been taking all sorts of supplements and trying to stay fit by working out at the gym. Balancing the need to nourish her body and keep in shape is exhausting. As for Willow, it's because of her university admission situation. As I had predicted, no good school was willing to admit her. Even after the second round application, she still wasn't accepted. Now, she only has two options left: attend a private college or repeat the year. But with her track record, even if she repeats, there's no guarantee that any university will take her. What's worse, if she repeats, she may not be able to maintain her current level. She scored 632 in the college entrance exam. Yet now she can only attend a private college. That's probably more painful than if she had failed the exam altogether. My dad asked, "Willow, what do you think? Do you want to try for a private college, or repeat the year?" Willow bit her lip, silent tears falling from her eyes. She said, "Dad, I don't want to go to a private college. I scored so high. Why can't I get into a good school?" My dad glanced at her coldly and said, "You still have the nerve to say that? Do you really think you're not the reason for all this? Who forced you to tear up your brother's answer sheet? If it wasn't for you trying to sabotage others, with your 632 score, wouldn't it have been easy to get into a top university?" My dad didn't hold back, even rubbing salt in Willow's wound. Hearing this, Willow cried even harder. My stepmother's gaze lingered on my dad's face for a moment before she spoke gently. "Since things have come to this, let's figure out a way for her to attend a decent private college. Now that no good school is willing to admit her, even if she repeats the year, the situation probably won't change much. But the good thing is, our family owns a business. After she graduates, she can directly join the company. Even if it's a private college, it won't be such a big deal." Although my stepmother tried to comfort Willow, I could tell she wasn't entirely satisfied. And honestly, who could be satisfied after scoring 632, only to end up in a private college? I smiled and added, "Aunt Lou's right. If you repeat the year, your scores might drop, and you might not even make it into a private college. But at least you're luckier than Makoto. Remember him? He was caught tearing up the answer sheets and had his exam qualification revoked. His first exam results were also cancelled. His future's pretty much ruined." When I mentioned this, my dad snapped. "She's lucky, though, to have a generous brother like George, who's willing not to hold it against her. Otherwise, her fate would have been the same as Makoto's." Then, my dad decided that Willow wouldn't repeat the year but would go to a private college instead. Willow was so angry that she didn't eat for a whole day. I thought my stepmother might be anxious about the situation, but to my surprise, she was back at the gym the next day. Looking at her recent bills, I decided it was time to step up my game. School was about to start, and I wouldn't have much time to deal with her soon. The day before school started, I took the initiative to suggest we go shopping for some new clothes as a way to show my respect. My stepmother must have realized that the financial reins were in my hands and, eager to please me, she agreed without hesitation. I first took her to a luxury store, had her try on several outfits, and didn't even check the prices, just told the staff to wrap them up. When we left the store, my stepmother kept praising me. "George, you're so filial. Unlike Willow, she never buys me anything." I glanced at my stepmother's stomach and deliberately said, "Well, Aunt Lou, you'd better hurry up and give my dad a son. Otherwise, if one day he's in a hurry for a child and you can't give him one, Then both you and Willow will have nothing left to buy. My stepmother's expression turned awkward, a hint of embarrassment crossing her face. She looked around before softly replying, I've been trying to get pregnant lately. I should have good news soon. I said, you better keep at it. I put the shopping bags in the trunk and jumped into the passenger seat. My stepmother quickly walked around to the driver's seat and was about to start the car. I added, although our Wang family doesn't have a throne to pass on, we're still a prominent family. We should try to expand. So Aunt Lou, if you can't give my dad a son, you probably won't need me to say anything. He'll make you leave. You're 41 now, and getting older. You probably won't find a better match than my dad. My stepmother gave an awkward laugh. Don't worry, George. I'm sure I'll have a son soon. I slowly smiled and said, okay, I'll wait for your good news. And when you're pregnant, I'll personally reward you with 200,000. If you manage to have a son, I'll have my dad buy you a house and put it in your name. When she heard this, the awkwardness on my stepmother's face was immediately replaced by joy. She gasped, George, are you just trying to cheer me up? I smiled and said, of course not. As long as you can give my dad a child, Aunt Lou, you'll be a hero in the Wang family. A house? It's nothing. But the condition was that the child had to be my dad's. My stepmother was so excited, her hands trembling slightly as she drove. Whether it was for securing her position or that house, I was sure she would do whatever it took to get pregnant as soon as possible. Chapter 8. My stepmother was really trying hard to get pregnant. She even secretly sought out some folk remedies. But no matter what, her belly still didn't show any sign of progress. Add to that the fact that I was occasionally messing with her. I felt like she was on the verge of an anxiety disorder. This continued until just before the new year. Our school started winter break, and when I just got home, my stepmother mysteriously knocked on my door holding something. I asked, Aunt Lou, what's up? What do you need? I said in an impatient tone. Since she still hadn't gotten pregnant, I'd been showing nothing but impatience toward her lately and even took back the secondary bank card I had given her. With a big smile, my stepmother handed me a pregnancy test stick and said, George, you're going to have a little brother soon. I was stunned for a moment, then slowly smiled and asked, Aunt Lou, are you pregnant? She nodded and said, I just found out this morning. I haven't told your dad yet. I wanted you to be the first to know. I immediately understood, and said, Aunt Lou, you want me to keep my promise and give you the 200,000, right? Don't worry, as long as the baby is my dad's, I'll definitely give you the money, and I'll talk to my dad about the house. My stepmother's smile froze for a moment. She said, George, what are you talking about? I'm married to your dad. If the baby isn't his, whose could it be? I lowered my head, hiding the amusement in my eyes, thinking to myself, who can say for sure? That evening, when my dad came home, my stepmother couldn't wait to announce the pregnancy news. She put the pregnancy test stick and the ultrasound report in front of my dad and said, smiling brightly, honey, congratulations, you're going to be a dad. Willow shot me a provocative look, then raised her eyes to my dad, as if waiting for his reaction. But my dad didn't react the way they expected. Instead, his face grew darker. He picked up the ultrasound report and studied it carefully for a moment before asking, are you sure this is your test result? My stepmother looked confused and asked, yes, why? Are you not happy? My dad smirked, his tone ambiguous. Happy? How could I not be happy? Just to be sure, let's go for another checkup tomorrow. Hearing this, my stepmother breathed a sigh of relief and kissed my dad's cheek. Whatever you say. After realizing there was no drama to be had that night, I returned to my room. Just as I was about to take a shower, Willow barged in uninvited. It had been almost half a year since we last saw each other, and now Willow had started wearing heavy makeup. Her face seemed more sullen, her aura much more aggressive. She snorted and said, George, what are you pretending for? Remember how you used to act like you didn't care about me? Now you're regretting it. Huh? Who would have thought? My mom really did get pregnant. Your good days are about to end, I replied. Whose good days are ending first is still up in the air. I smiled and added, did you forget? I control the family finances, right? The house you're living in, that's mine. I can kick you both out any time I want. Got it? Willow sneered and said, that was before. Now my mom's pregnant. You're no longer your dad's only son. Do you really think he'll give everything to you now? Willow didn't even try to hide her malice and smugness. She looked down her nose at me and said, once my mom has the baby, including the company, everything will be for my little brother. You, on the other hand, will end up with nothing. I couldn't help but laugh at Willow's words and replied, you should stop wasting your pocket money on cosmetics. Buy some walnuts instead. Willow froze for a second and asked, what do you mean by that? I answered, to nourish your brain. Chapter 9. My dad took my stepmother to a private hospital for tests early in the morning, including an ultrasound and blood tests. Such simple tests. The hospital of course wouldn't make a misdiagnosis. Indeed, my stepmother was pregnant. At the age of 41, when they came back, my dad's face was dark with anger, while my stepmother was still immersed in dreams of the future and didn't notice his unusual mood. She went on and on for a while, but when no one responded, she cleared her throat a few times and said, "George, the doctor said you need to be careful in the early stages of pregnancy. Do you think we should hire a nanny?" I smiled at her and said, "I'll do what Dad thinks is best." She turned to my dad, asking gently, "Honey, is that all right?" She placed her hand on her still flat stomach and said, "I know I'm older, and it's not easy for me to get pregnant. I'm just afraid." Before she could finish, my dad let out a cold laugh, his tone decisive. "Let's get a divorce." "What did you say?" My stepmother's eyes widened in disbelief as she looked at my dad. She asked, "Honey, what do you mean? After all this time, I finally got pregnant with your child. Why do you want a divorce?" Willow was also panicking now. She said, "Yeah, Dad, my mom is risking so much to have a baby for you. How can you do this?" My dad looked at them both coldly and mocked. "You both know better than anyone how this baby came about." My stepmother swallowed hard, and tears came instantly. She looked at my dad accusingly but didn't say anything. However, my dad wasn't moved. He said, "I don't want to say anything too harsh in front of the child. We can divorce peacefully, and I'll give you some money. If it goes to court, I guarantee you won't get a cent." "Dad." Willow stood up, her face full of agitation. My stepmother quickly pulled her back and said, "Willow, go back to your room for now." Seeing this, Willow's panic only deepened. After a brief hesitation, she chose to listen to her mother's advice. "George, go back to your room too," my dad said. Glancing at me, I stayed where I was, saying, "Dad, I'm an adult now. Let me hear what you have to say." My dad sighed, silently agreeing. He looked at my stepmother and asked, "Do you know why I didn't choose a younger, more beautiful woman, but chose you instead?" My stepmother shook her head, her expression full of fear, her body trembling slightly. My dad said calmly, "Because from the start, you were after my money, and you're older now. You wouldn't have the same illusions as a young girl, and you wouldn't be looking for things you shouldn't." My stepmother's face was filled with shock. "I don't understand what you mean." As though she realized something, she turned her gaze to me and said, "Do you like George that much? Are you willing to give up on having a child of our own for him?" My dad remained expressionless, and said matter-of-factly, "It's not a matter of wanting or not. I simply can't have children anymore. If I could, I'd definitely find a younger woman," my dad said confidently. "Otherwise, why do you think I didn't have a second child with George's mother?" My stepmother's face turned ghostly white. Her hand instinctively moved to her stomach. My dad couldn't have children, but she was pregnant. How this child came to be was now self-evident. I lowered my eyes to hide the smile in them. Of course, I knew my dad couldn't have children, though he'd kept it well hidden. My mom loved me dearly. Before she left, she made sure to tell me this secret, hoping it would put my mind at ease. Getting my stepmother pregnant to compete for the family fortune, I wasn't that magnanimous. From the very beginning, I knew that with my stepmother's personality, if she couldn't get pregnant for a long time, she'd definitely resort to some kind of devious plan. She married my dad because of his money. Now, with the chance to secure most of the family's wealth, she wouldn't be able to resist. But what did all this have to do with me? I was just a son willing to let my stepmother have a child with my dad to inherit the family fortune. If I said it, everyone would just think I was a considerate and dutiful son. No one would blame me. Chapter 10. Before the new year, my dad and stepmother went together to finalize the divorce procedures. As my dad said, by divorcing now, she would still get a little bit of compensation, but if it went to court, she wouldn't get anything. The day they moved out, Willow cried uncontrollably. She clung tightly to my dad's legs, refusing to let go, sobbing, "Dad, how could you be so heartless? What did my mom do wrong? How could you kick us out at a time like this?" My dad looked at my ex-stepmother emotionlessly and said, "Get her out of here. Don't make me slap her." My ex-stepmother immediately stepped forward and slapped Willow across the face. "Get out. Stop embarrassing yourself." Although Willow kept looking back as she left, she eventually had no choice but to move out with her mother. The divorce was so smooth, not because my ex-stepmother had a change of heart, but because my dad held a pile of evidence of her infidelity. To get pregnant, she had gone all out, spending my dad's money to find a male escort at a nightclub. Perhaps the lesson from the incident with the torn answer sheets taught her something, because this time, all her expenses there were in cash. But so what? On my way to school, I had specifically hired someone to keep an eye on things. With just a little nudge, my dad easily discovered my ex-stepmother's affair. After my ex-stepmother left, my dad asked me, "George, did you know about all of this already?" "Yes," I nodded without denying it. Even Aunt Lou wanting to have a child, I was the one who brought it up first. My dad looked at me with disappointment in his eyes and asked, "What's the benefit of all this for you? I've left all my assets to you. Why are you still not satisfied? I threw a stack of photos onto the table in front of him and said, I found these while going through my mom's belongings. Before she passed, Aunt Lou had visited her. My dad looked down at the photos, his expression momentarily stunned. I scoffed. My mom's condition had improved, but she suddenly passed away. Do you really believe it was just a coincidence? My dad's lips moved for a long time before he finally said, I'm sorry, I didn't know. Dad, I called softly. Aunt Lou bears some responsibility for mom's death, but so do you. Cheating is something that can't happen with just one hand clapping. No matter how much my ex-stepmother might have schemed to seduce my dad, if he hadn't been interested, no matter how low she stooped, it wouldn't have worked. But once it happened, it was mutual. I said, Aunt Lou indirectly caused mom's death, but the one who gave her that opportunity was you. If my dad hadn't had the affair, my ex-stepmother wouldn't have had the chance. So, as for my mom's death, my dad bears more than half the responsibility, but he was good to me, no doubt about it. Since I was little, apart from the time right after my mom's funeral when he let my ex-stepmother move in, he never made me suffer. Even when I had conflicts with Willow, he always stood by me. And since he's my dad, even though I feel disgusted, I couldn't bring myself to say anything cruel or do anything to hurt him. With my dad, I both loved and hated him, but my ex-stepmother was different. From the beginning, I had made up my mind, so long as I was still breathing, I wouldn't let her stay in this house, but I understood my dad. So when she and Willow first moved in, I chose to endure. Arguing was useless. No matter how strong the emotions were, they would eventually wear away. Winning had to be done with strategy. That's what my mom taught me. My dad sat in the living room the whole night. The next morning, when I got up for breakfast, he actually apologized to me. He said, George, this was my mistake. I apologize to you. He looked exhausted and said, You're right about mom's death. I bear a large part of the responsibility. So rest assured, I won't bring any woman into this house again. I set down my chopsticks and said softly, Dad, you're still young, and Mom has passed away. If you want to find another woman, I won't stop you. After all, as your son, I can't stay with you forever. But, I paused, you can marry anyone, just not Aunt Lou. A month later, my dad and my ex-stepmother successfully got their divorce certificate. After that, he seemed to keep his word, not dating anyone for a long time. It wasn't until my senior year internship that he started dating again, but I didn't care. My mom was already gone, and no one had the right to stop him from remarrying. But everything at home was mine, so what was there left to fight for? It was all just sentimental.